Hey guys, do you know someone considering renting their property as an Airbnb? I have worked with Rental Advisor for over a decade, and Rental Advisor provides free rental projections to prospective owners, realtors, and investors for any property in the US. So if you know someone considering getting into the vacation rental industry, have them email management@myrentaladvisor.com to get their free revenue projections. So in previous videos, I spoke about my own faith journey and what I call my faith remodeling. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about similar themes. So I might suggest, if you enjoy this video, that you go back and watch those others if you haven't already. So as I've looked back on my own struggles with faith, I've come to realize that most of the time these were resolved not because I found the perfect answer, but rather when I realized that I wasn't even asking the right question in the first place. So often the way we are framing our problems is the problem. In this video, I'm not going to try and answer all of your questions, but instead what I want to do is provide a new and maybe more accurate way of understanding what is going on when a person is dealing with what is commonly called a faith crisis. Now, to be honest, I don't like the term faith crisis, and I don't say this to minimize the deep, world-altering depression and disorientation that people sometimes experience during what we call a faith crisis. To be sure, it's an experience of crisis that can be utterly devastating to people. However, it's important to understand what is going on. The reality is that it's not just about the church per se, or even your just particular religious views. For most people, it's not just like, well, I don't like the Mormon church, so I guess I'll switch to the Catholic church, or, maybe I'll switch from Mormonism to Buddhism or something like that. What's normally going on is that nearly your entire way of seeing the world is collapsing. What you are experiencing is the psychological response to an immense disorientation that is occurring when your map that you use to interpret the nature of reality is suddenly not computing and not making sense. To be stable psychologically, people need some kind of a mental model, or what we might call a belief system. This helps them to make sense of their place in reality, and more importantly on the psychological level, to find some kind of sustaining meaning that makes life worthwhile. This loss of belief can cause immense psychological distress, and normally people either don't know where this distress is coming from, or they look to blame someone or some group for their newfound psychological state. Nihilism is what results when you have no system to orient yourself. It's incredibly damaging, and in reality, it's not sustainable. So people go about reconstructing some kind of a belief system.
Yes. Yeah, I think for so many of our audience, there are people who really want to get closer to nature. They're especially women who are so curious about this world. It's a little overwhelming at first when you're first leaving high demand religion.
My wife recently bought a tarot deck, and she has been researching how to be a tarot reader.
When she's talking, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, maybe I should be a witch.
A belief system is a narrative that you use to describe the nature of reality and your place in it. Fundamentally, this is what religion functions as. We say that a religion or a belief system is true to the degree to which its narratives about the nature of reality actually represent that reality. Now, here's where things get really interesting. While it may seem like there is a nearly endless amount of belief systems out there actually are very few categories of belief. Let's explore what I mean. An entire journey of belief begins with the fact that you exist. It's the most basic fact of all, and you can believe in that. Furthermore, you exist in something that we might call reality. This is all the things that exist outside of you. The construction of a belief system is the construction of a system of ideas that explains the nature of yourself and the reality that surrounds you. And the first stop is to establish how that reality can be known at all. This is called your epistemology. Now, I won't go into this in detail here, as I have made a whole series on the important topic of epistemology and how we can know anything about ourselves or reality. Suffice it to say that we find ourselves in reality, and we're confronted with the question of if all of this around us, all of reality, is just random and arbitrary, or if there is some kind of a mind or higher power behind it all. It's fundamentally the question about the existence of something we would loosely call a higher power or God. And there are only two options. Either there is something we might call God or a higher power behind all of this, or there isn't. Either our reality is the product of design, or it's not. If there is some kind of higher power, then the next question is if this higher power or God interacts in some way with the universe. He or it either does or does not. If he or it does, then you are in the realm of theism. If he does not, then you are in the realm of deism. Obviously, if you choose the God does not exist option, then that leads you to a whole other realm of possible models of understanding that people use to try and make sense of reality and your place in it without any sort of God or higher power. You will notice that agnosticism is not on here. That is intentional. Agnosticism is a cop-out. It basically is a refusal to construct a coherent belief model because you lack perfect rational certainty. It's when you say, I don't know, and just walk away. But everyone's beliefs ultimately manifest in their behavior. I'm going to repeat that. Everyone's beliefs ultimately manifest in their behavior. What someone says they believe or don't believe is cheap. You can say you're agnostic, but your behavior shows where you really have placed your faith. Your behavior shows what you really believe in. My point here is twofold. First, that there are binaries. God either exists or he does not. God either interacts with the world or he does not. This can frame into what category your belief system will fall into. My second point is that once we figure out which category we are in, we can then push deeper and begin exploring the various models of understanding within that category. Keep in mind this concept of models of understanding, as it will be useful in the rest of this video. So for example, if I find myself a theist, I now can explore the various theistic models in the world. I don't need to find the perfect model. I just need to find which model seems the most probable when compared to the rest. So yes, there are reasons to doubt God's existence, but the atheist model of the universe still seems far less plausible to me than a theistic one. I don't need a perfect model. I just need the best model among the alternatives available. So as I have explored the various theistic systems, I have found that Christianity is the most plausible amongst the ones that I have heard of. And within Christianity, I have found the restored gospel to be the most plausible. And within the church, we even have different models for understanding our own faith, ranging from Desnat fundamentalism to woke sunstone activists. Again, my point here is not to address every model, but to point out that what we're doing in our faith journeys is exploring different models of understanding our place in reality. So when exploring a topic like Book of Mormon historicity, first familiarize yourself with the different models of understanding. Look into the position that it's purely inspired fiction. Look into the position that it's an expanded translation. Look into the idea that it's pure word for word, God-breathed perfect translation. And then adopt the one that seems the most plausible. But give yourself grace to revise your position. Hold it as the best understanding of the issue at the current moment. You could be wrong about some things, but still be right about other things. For example, if you came to find a hard word-for-word translation model was no longer tenable, that doesn't mean you have to throw out the entire idea that Joseph Smith was a prophet. It could mean that you simply need to adopt some other model or create a new one that accounts for the data. Or let's say that you do lose your belief in Joseph Smith, that he was even a prophet at all. At that point, you should recall that the Joseph Smith story is a particular model for understanding Christianity. And if that model was not correct, that doesn't mean you have to throw away Christianity. Instead, you need to construct a new model or find a new model for Christianity. Now, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. As a faithful Latter-day Saint, I fully believe that the best model is theism, and more specifically Christianity, and again more specifically the restored gospel, and again more specifically a standard contemporary orthodox understanding of the restored gospel as taught by the current prophet and quorum of the 12. But no matter where we are in our journey of exploration, we all will hit limits where we are still investigating various models of understanding. For instance, on the question of Book of Mormon historicity, I have varied over time in the models that I believe are most compelling. At one time, I felt very attracted to the inspired fiction model. However, since learning more about the evidence of antiquity in the Book of Mormon, I am far more partial to the expansion theory of the Book of Mormon. But even that is only held provisionally as I continue to explore the subject. An example of the area that a lot of Latter-day Saints are still trying to figure out is the nature of things like Book of Mormon geography. And frankly, it's okay to adopt a model tentatively. Are you starting to see how this works? Our entire belief system is constructed from the bottom up as we explore and compare the different models of understanding. This is the great conversation that human beings have been having for thousands of years. And it is this conversation that really matters because it becomes the basis for how you make sense of the world and find meaning in it, and also the basis for your behavior. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, a faith crisis is ultimately when your map no longer makes sense to you, and you're psychologically responding to this disorientation. The worst thing a person can do in this situation is continue to deconstruct. At some point, you need to begin to reconstruct your map. And the purpose of this video is to help you understand the basic layout of the map. I also hope that this video will help you to realize that you don't need to retreat to agnosticism. Just because you don't have perfect rational certainty on your models doesn't mean that you can't place your faith in the ones that seem probable. All models face some level of legitimate rational criticism. So while you don't need a perfect model of understanding, all you really need is somewhere to place your trust. And I believe placing that trust in the best available option is what faith is. And from that basis, you can model your behavior and actions according to where you've placed your faith. And this is what we call living with integrity. People who reject any model of understanding that is less than perfect will find themselves in nihilism very quickly. Essentially, every model of understanding is subject to some level of rational critique. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. You have to place your chips somewhere if you want to have a meaningful life and live with integrity. So the person of faith places their chips on the best model of understanding that they have available to them. It doesn't need to be perfect. They just need to be better than the alternatives. This is what faith is. It's not belief without evidence. It's the placing of a bet on something that you don't have perfect certainty of, but which you believe merits that trust. This is how you orient yourself again. This is why the loss of faith can be so disorienting and distressful. So as I said in the beginning, this video is not about me telling you where to go per se. It's simply to model the nature of the game we are all playing as human beings, and why the big conversation matters so much. In the end, we are all exploring the different models for making sense of the reality that's around us. So if you find yourself struggling, go back to the beginning and explore where can you place your trust. Personally, I did this, and I found that God was the best explanation for reality, that Jesus Christ was the best explanation for God's interaction with that reality, and that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the best explanation for what the risen Lord Jesus Christ is doing today. I pray that God will be with you as you seek to understand the full depth of our existence. So do you enjoy the content here on Thoughtful Faith? If so, be sure to hit the notification bell. This ensures that our new videos show up on your feed. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook group called Thoughtful Saints, where myself and others discuss the sorts of topics found on this channel. And lastly, if you think other people would benefit from this video, please be sure to share it.